Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K.
Thanks so much for joining me, and today I have a very fun tutorial planned for you guys. I am creating a stack of letters with a hidden compartment inside of it. A couple of months ago I did show you a Craft Supply For You design team where I created another stack of letters with a hidden compartment, and I had a lot of ladies ask if I would create a tutorial. And so I listened, and so I have now finished and worked on a tutorial, and this is the final product, and I wanted to show you guys that before you went ahead and watched the rest of the videos to go ahead and do a tutorial. At this point I'm not sure if it'll be a 2 or a 3-part video series, but for sure it'll be 2 parts, but possibly 3. I will show you how to create just the basic stack of letters and then also how to decorate it. And what's really fun about this project is you can really use lots of bits and pieces left over from other projects, lots of snippets from your trims, leftover flowers, leftover embellishments, so it's kind of one of those fun projects. And so again, I'll just kind of show you guys a little bit closer up here on the camera. I did create some legs on this, and then there's a base, and then the actual stack of letters. Each corner I have decorated with some sort of flower sprays. You can also see bits of doilies and laces and trims sticking out for my letters. Here's the back side. And here is the other side. Again, just some different flower sprays. Here I added a little crown embellishment right here. You can see I also hung some bead trim at the bottom, layered on top some really pretty white lace trim, and then added some flat back pearls. So there's all sorts of wonderful details. So now I'm just going to kind of flip it so you can kind of see the front. So here is the top of the box that we will be creating of stacked letters. This one does open, and so there is a spot inside here for you to stick a note or a letter to whoever the recipient is going to be, or maybe just a hidden spot for your own love letters that you like to keep. Again, there's lots of details in all the corners. Up at the top left you can see butterflies and some leaves and some pretty bead sprays. There's a little bit of an applique and a charm right here, lace along the edges, a little flower doily in the middle, along with some laces on there. Each corner has kind of a little scene going on. I have a bird and a little lace snippet and some flowers in that one. Over here I have this really pretty cabochon that I added a picture of Marie Antoinette on the inside, and this little cabochon does come from, the bronze cabochon does come from Craft Supplies For You. And then I have a little bit of detail here with this little ribbon and then a little snippet of lace right here. And this does open up. And once it opens up, there is a hidden compartment box on the inside. And then here's what it looks like when you kind of open it up. I did decide to just leave this part plain. In the previous box that I created, I did add like a little postcard inside here that you could add some sort of little note. But I really love the look of this paper, so I just left it as is. So if you guys like what you see, please stick around for the rest of the video. And of course, if you guys can, I would love it if you could leave some comments. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to leave those and I will do my best to answer them. And let's get started.
I have a rough supply list for this project, but I encourage you to use what you have on hand and make adaptations as needed. Some items that you will need are envelopes, mat board or chipboard, scrapbooking paper, laces, trims, doilies, flowers, embellishments, legs for a base. I will be using square blocks, acrylic paint and paintbrush. This is optional if you want to paint your base legs. A Velcro for closure. Again, this item is also optional. Scoreboard, stylus tool, bone folder. An X-Acto knife, scissors, and cutting mat. The types of adhesives that I will be using in today's project are hot glue, tacky glue, Fabri-Tac, and glossy accents, but again, use what you like and what you have on hand. You will also need a piece of scrap material for the inside of our compartment box, and then also an ink pad or blender tool. And again, this item is optional if you like to ink the edges of your scrapbooking paper. To begin this project, you will need to collect some envelopes, and you have the option of either using all store-bought envelopes, or you can make your envelopes or do a combination of both, which is what I will be doing for today's project. I'm choosing to use an envelope that is 7 1/4 inches long this way, and the height is 5 1/4, but you guys can use any size that you want. I do have a previous video out there showing a stack of letters that is a smaller version that I used a smaller envelope. So again, size does not matter. It just depends upon how big you want it or how little you want it. And as far as the number of envelopes that you need, today I will be using 18 envelopes, and 2 of those will be decorative. You can choose to use more or less. Again, it just your personal preference. If you use more, your stack will be higher and your box on the inside or your little hidden compartment will be deeper. If you use fewer envelopes, your hidden compartment or your box on the inside will not be as deep. So there is a lot of variation to this, and do what makes you happy. And then my only other recommendation or my preference is I prefer an envelope that has kind of this V shape right here versus one that looks like this. They will both work if this is what you have on hand and you don't want to go out and buy more. I just like the look of this type of envelope for my top envelope in my stack. And so this is the type and the size that I will be going with for today. And then again, I'm choosing to make 2 envelopes out of scrapbooking paper. And again, you can make your whole stack out of ones that you've made with scrapbooking paper. But most of these will be covered other than the edges, and I just hate to waste too much pretty paper, so that's why I just choose to make only a couple envelopes for the very top. And as far as how I made these envelopes is I did take apart one of the envelopes and I just traced it onto my scrapbooking paper. And if I wanted to, I could go ahead and glue this one back up and still use this one in my stack. And so the number of envelopes that I'm using today is a total of 18 envelopes, and 2 of those are handmade. The next item that you do need to go ahead and collect is some sort of chipboard or mat board to put inside of your envelopes. This is going to give it stability, and it's also going to help you with the height of your box. And I'm choosing 19 mat boards, and one of these I'm actually going to be using as my template. And so there will be, like I said, the same number of mat boards as there is envelopes plus one that we will be using as our template, which I will tell you how to make your template in a minute here. You will also need a base for your stack of letters, and I'm choosing to use one that is bigger than my envelopes because I do want to do a little decorating on the corners. And so here is my size of my envelope. So again, if I were to like move my stack of letters like this, I have little spots to decorate. And I will do a quick measurement. This one's about 8 3/4 by slightly over 5 1/2 for the size of this. Again, just go through your chipboard and your mat board or packaging material and just choose something that's a little bit bigger. It does not really matter what size your base is. Okay, so the first step is to take your stack of envelopes, and we are going to decorate this stack of envelopes just slightly. We will see the edges when we stack them to make our little box. And what you want to do is, first off, I'm just going to crinkle my edges just a little bit, just because I want to make it look like it actually is a used stack of envelopes. You don't have to do this step if you don't want. I just like that my edges look a little more distressed. And then the next step is to ink your edges if you want. And I'm just using some Ranger archival ink that matches my scrapbooking paper that I will be using. And then just a distresser. And you don't have to cover both sides. Just pick one side for whatever side you're going to use the top of your envelope. And just go around your edges and ink them. So that's what my envelope looks like. Again, I'm going to be doing this for 18 envelopes. I'm going to crinkle all my edges and go ahead and ink the edges. And I will be right back after I get all of that done. I did just finish inking all the edges of my envelopes. And so here's this pile of the store-bought ones. Again, I just inked one side because you won't see the back side of these. And then I also inked and put together these two envelopes. And on the one that I'm going to choose to use for my very top of my envelope stack, I went ahead and also inked the inside. And right now, I want you to take whatever envelope you're using for your top of your stack of letters and set it aside so you don't do anything to it until it's time to attach it to our actual stack and decorate it. So go ahead and set this one aside. So now that should leave you with 17 envelopes, and if you're following along with me, I have one of those then that's decorative and the rest are all just store-bought. You also need to take out your mat board or your chipboard, your packaging material, whatever you want to use to help give your stack of letters depth, and you need to cut these slightly smaller than your envelopes because you do want them to fit inside your envelopes like this. So they do need to close and fit in there. And the color, the packaging material that you use, again, it doesn't matter. As you can see, I'm using a couple different colors. I have gray and white and brown and taupe. You will not see these at the end. And again, you have 19 pieces of mat board. So one of them you will set aside to use for your template. And I will get to that again shortly. Then you should have 18 pieces of mat board. You also have your cover, or not your cover, but you also have your base, which we will decorate in a moment. And so there will be one extra piece of chipboard left in this pile, which we will be using as our cover of our stack of letters, or the top of the box that lifts up. And we will be layering this piece on top of it eventually. So you will have one extra piece, so don't worry, we will get into decorating that piece in a minute. So go ahead, and what I want you to do now is to take your stack of letters that you have sitting here, minus your top one. Again, set this one aside, don't do anything to that one yet. And I want you to go ahead and just put, and I'm just using tacky glue. And this just holds it in place so that when we go ahead and start cutting out our compartment box in the middle of our stack of letters, that it doesn't wiggle or move as much. You don't have to glue it if you don't want to. I just found that it helps. And so you're just going to go ahead and insert your chipboard, your mat board, or whatever you're using inside of your envelopes. And then you're also going to go ahead and glue your envelope shut once the chipboard is in there. Just like that. And you're going to go ahead and do that for the whole rest of your stack of letters, or your envelopes. Again, I'm just going to, I always double check and make sure that I cut things right so that they fit before I glue them in. And again, I'm just putting just a little bit of glue. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the rest of my pile. Again, you should have, when you go through it, you should have a piece left over to make your template with your mat board, and then also a piece that we will be using for our cover of our stack of letters, or the top of our box. So you should have two pieces left over. And we'll talk about that when I come back. So go ahead and finish putting in the mat board inside of the envelopes. I just finished putting mat board inside each of my envelopes. And again, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 if you are following along with me. But again, any number works. So if you have a couple less or a couple more, that's fine. No big deal. Then you should have 2 more pieces left the same size. One of them we will be using to make our template. So go ahead and set that one aside for a moment. And then you should have 1 more, and we're going to use this to create the cover or the top part of our box. And I have my old box that I created before sitting here. So this will be this top envelope that I had you guys set aside. And then underneath here, you can see there's a piece right here on the corners, or even the top inside of the box, and that's what we're going to go ahead and create right now, is this cover piece. So to create that cover piece, I still have a piece of that chipboard or my mat board that's cut the same size as what I use on the insides of my envelopes. I also cut a piece of paper that was larger, and the idea is I do want a flap. This is going to be my hinge of my book, or my top, so if it would go like this. So we do want that, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line it up, and because I like my sides of my mat board or my chipboard covered, I did cut my paper slightly larger, and I'm going to wrap it, and then also glue down a piece of paper over on this side. But you do want to make sure that you have enough room on the top for a hinge. And so my hinge, I'm choosing to do, this is like 1 1.25 inches. And so we're not going to really do anything up at that top part. But for here, if you're going to wrap it, what I did is, so I laid this down on my scrapbooking paper. And I cut, or not cut, but I scored 1/8 of an inch away from this edge on both sides so that it'll wrap nicely over my piece. And then I also did 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. And again, this top part is going to be my flap. So now that I have, I'll try and hold it up close, hopefully. You guys can kind of see, I did mark it in pencil where my mat board laid, and then I have 1/8 of an inch right here and 1/8 of an inch here just to cover my sides, and then same with the side. And up here I just scored it once right where the top of my mat board's gonna hit. So here I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna cut out the corners here. I'll just show you guys that real quick. So up here at the top, and again, you guys don't have to do this. I'm just choosing to do this because I want my sides covered of my mat board. You could also ink them if you wanted to, or just leave them. If you like the nice little angles, you can do that too. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to glue this inside of here. And I just used tacky glue for that. Then I'm going to pull these up and glue these down. And again, you might need to just slightly angle them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now because it seems like it's kind of covering too far. So we'll just go ahead and angle them just a little bit. That'll just make the gluing just be a little bit smoother when we glue everything down. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my bone folder just to make sure it's going to lay nice. And then I'm going to glue just these, the bottom and these two right here. This one, again, is our hinge, so don't do anything with that. Don't glue anything or do anything with that. So here's what I have so far on this side, and then this side's the pretty paper. And what I'm going to go ahead and do right now too, because I forgot to do this, is I'm going to go ahead and take my ink, and I'm just going to go ahead and ink these edges real quick. That won't show, so. And then I just realized I probably should have put a 1/8 inch little sector right here too. So I'm going to do that too real quick before we move on. That's just going to make it lay a little bit better when we hinge it onto our stack of letters. So then also cut a piece of paper to fit on the inside to cover this up. And so the big thing here that you want to watch out for is, again, so here's my original box that I made. And so this is going to lift up. So this is how it's going to lift up the exact same way, like this and then like this. But when you open it, you want to make sure if you choose something that has writing on it, that you put it the right way so that when you open up your box, you can see it. So if I were to glue it this way, it would be upside down. If you happen to use just a generic flower pattern or something like that, it doesn't really matter. But for this case, mine does have some writing, and I do want to make sure that I can read it. So I want to make sure that when I lift it up this way, that I'm going to be able to read my writing. So I have this set for the right way. Again, we're not doing anything with our flap yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down, but I am going to ink my edges first on this before I glue it down. Okay, so again, this is our cover with a flap. Go ahead and set this aside for right now. The next step is to go ahead and we're going to create our base for our stack of letters. Again, if you look at this one that I created before, this is my base right here. And so I'm just going to, again, start with some sort of mat board. It is larger than the ones that we had cut for the insides of the envelopes. Again, it doesn't matter the size, just cut it so it's slightly bigger. So again, here was like one of my envelopes. And as you can see, it's just a little bit bigger because I'm going to lay my stack of envelopes probably like this or like this on here. And then I'm going to be able to decorate these little corners. So it just needs to be a little bit bigger. And so again, I cut paper, and again, because I like to wrap my sides of my mat board or chipboard, I did cut one of my papers slightly larger than this one. And I will go ahead and just probably glue it down and then wrap it and then glue the sides down. And then I cut a piece for the top cover. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down in the middle. And it probably would have been easier if I would have cut my piece of paper slightly bigger, but this was a scrap that I had because I would have went ahead and did the whole 1/8 thing like I did before so that it would move and fold nicely. But this was just a remnant that I had and I wanted to use it up. So otherwise I probably would have had a little bit more to wrap around my mat board. But this worked out for me. Like I said, I just had this piece left over and I didn't want to cut another whole sheet. So what I'll do here now that that's glued down is I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of angle my paper like this, or cut it like this. And again, this is just the base of our stack of letters. And so again, if I had a bigger piece underneath, this would be a much easier than this process right here. But I just couldn't see cutting a whole nother sheet of paper when I had one that kind of fit. So I'm going to go ahead and glue my little flaps over. I'm not going to be too worried if some of my glue seeps over because I am gluing on this other sheet on top of it. So I'm not too worried about that. So sometimes when I find that I've done this and if my paper's not going to stick down very well, I'll just use little clips like this and I'll just temporarily kind of hold it so that I don't have to do it while I keep on working on gluing these other sides right here. Next, I'm going to glue the other side of the base. So I did this one, and now I'm going to glue this on top. Again, I just cut a piece of paper to fit my base. So that's what we have so far, and I'm going to go ahead and also ink the edges on both sides of this base. Okay, after that's done, I'm just going to set this aside and we're going to go ahead and work on making our template so that we can cut out the inside to make our compartment in our stack of letters. Okay, the next step is to take our last piece of chipboard or mat board that you cut. Again, it's the same size as our envelopes or slightly smaller. And you need to decide what or how big of an opening you want inside of your stack of letters. So this one's, again, this one was a smaller envelope and a smaller opening inside of that. And so for this one, what I decided that I'm going to do is I'm going to make mine a little bit larger. And I'm going to go around and measure in on each side 3/4 of an inch. So you will need a ruler and an X-Acto knife and a cutting mat for this step. And so I went ahead and kind of marked a square all the way around. This little X in the middle was just me trying to find the center, so that's no big deal. And the biggest thing with this is you do want to make sure you have a very sharp blade in your X-Acto knife. I recommend, if you haven't switched yours out for a while, to go ahead and do that because you are going to be cutting through all of these envelopes that we created, and so you're going to need a very sharp X-Acto knife. If you happen to have a die cutting machine that has you have a nice rectangle die cut, and your machine will accept thicker chipboard or the mat board, you can go ahead and center a rectangle die on your mat board and run it through. That would work great. My die cutting machine doesn't happen to like this thicker mat board, so I have to do it by hand, which again is the X-Acto knife and a mat underneath. And then I also choose to use a ruler that has a metal edge on it. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut out this rectangle on the inside. And again, you guys can make it whatever size you want. I just chose to go in 3/4 of an inch on all the sides. But if you wanted a smaller opening, you could go ahead and do an inch all the way around also. Because mat board is really thick, it's going to take me several swipes down with my X-Acto blade. So as you guys can see, I went ahead and I cut out this rectangle. And if you need to clean up any edges, just go ahead and do that. So this is what my template looks like right here. This is my template. And so our next step is to go ahead and we're going to cut out this shape on the inside of each of these envelopes. So I usually just start at the bottom and work my way up. And what you want to do is kind of make it, so what you want to do is to start off like this, and you just layer this on the inside. And I just trace my little template. So I'm tracing my template. So now I have a little square on the inside. So then I take my next envelope, and this one I did pretty straight on. So this next one, what I want to do is just angle this slightly. Because what we're trying to do is build our stack of letters, and as you can see here, they are angled slightly in kitty wampus from each other. So I am going to be cutting all of these different. So again, last time I had it like this. I'm going to go ahead and angle this one like this. And so I'm going to continue to do this with the rest of the stack, just kind of alternating. You can do some straight on and then do some angled. And then I will be back after I get all these done. So I'm getting close to being done tracing all of my envelopes. And I have, as you can kind of see, I have my little rectangles different on each one. They're slightly kitty wampus or straight on like this one. Usually the last couple towards the top, I like to make a little bit more straight on. And you guys can cut out your template with this side of the envelope up. It doesn't really matter. I usually just choose to do it on the inked side. So now I'm back to, I'm going to do this exact same thing then on the one envelope that we stuffed with the mat board that I cut out with scrapbooking paper. And this is going to be when you open up your box. So here's my box again. This is going to be this envelope right here. So if you wanted to, you could have stamped, like this one I attempted to stamp an image of a postcard, but it ended up getting all covered up anyway, so I chose not to do it for this box that we're working on right now. And so you have to decide if you want to use this side of the envelope, or if you cut out your little template right here, you will see just a little bit of this part, which makes it look like an envelope. Either way is fine. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes you happy. I think I'm going to try and do it this way this time. So again, I'm going to put this one pretty straight on when I cut my template here, or draw it out. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and on all my envelopes I have put different angles for my template, and the next step is to go ahead and cut all these out. This is probably my least favorite part of the whole project, is cutting these out. And so if it's easier for you to add your template back on and cut that way, or use your ruler, whatever works best, again, you are going to want a very sharp X-Acto blade. I like to use the ruler, so I'm just going to line this up, and I'm going to go ahead and cut. And again, we're just creating the inside of our compartment, or inside of our stack of letters, so we kind of have a hidden compartment or a little box to stick little keepsakes or fun little things for whoever we are gifting these to. I find that this is a good little activity to do, like if you're like listening to music or maybe watching or listening to a YouTube video. It does get kind of tedious after a bit, and your hands probably will get tired. Okay, so you guys can see now that I've cut out the inside. What I do next is I will, since this is kind of loose, I will go ahead and reinforce it with a little bit of glue at this point. Because I do want that to stay down. I'm also going to go ahead, there's a few little pencil lines, and since this is my top envelope and I'm going to see this one, I do want to erase any pencil lines. And I'm also going to go ahead and ink my inside edges on this one. So that's what we have so far. And I'm going to go ahead and do that exact same step on all of these. You don't need to ink your edges on the rest of these because you will not see them. We're going to cover the whole inside with material so you won't see anything. Just go ahead, and if you need to reinforce with glue around your edges, make sure you do that. Otherwise, go ahead and do the rest of your pile of envelopes, and I will be back after I'm done with that. Okay, I'm almost done with cutting out my envelopes, and I'm on the last one, and I figured I'd do one more with you guys just in case you wanted to see me do it again. This is the end of part 1 of this tutorial. There will be 2 more video parts to this. For your convenience, I will include links to these in the description box below.